Disney and Pixar's latest film Elio is set to release in theaters soon, and some people within the media are upset about the movie. Not for anything legitimate, they're upset because the movie doesn't have overt queerness within it. Elio review: Pixar's colorful sci-fi film celebrates weird kids, but only allegorically. The vision of a universe where outsiders are accepted rings false when Disney doesn't accept queerness in films. Now, keep in mind, this is a movie meant for children, and I would think the only reason why someone would want to shove queerness in a movie meant for children is to indoctrinate them, but I don't know, that's just my opinion. Now, when I see headlines like that, I can't help but look into the author of the article, so I clicked on it right here, and this is who it is, someone that you would think probably shouldn't be allowed within 500 yards of school, just judging by appearance. And it also says within the bio, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics. And it also has a link to a Blue Sky account. I went over there, and it's pretty much what you should come to expect from Blue Sky. So just keep that in mind when you hear what this person has to say about Elio. There's a moment in Elio where an eccentric human child tells an alien clone to impersonate him and just be normal. It makes sense in the context of the plot, but also for Pixar in general. The animated studio that brought you Inside Out and Elemental is, according to its own employees, now only allowed to talk about being different in fictional ways that don't make audiences who reject actually different people uncomfortable. Disney seems to believe Pixar's target audience is the villains from Pixar movies. What are they saying by that? That the target audience is non-straight kids and straight people are the villains in Pixar movies, and now they're trying to cater Pixar movies to them. I don't know if that's what they were trying to get with this, but that's what it comes across as, at least to me. That there's no place for queer people in the world they create, literally minimizing or erasing their non-allegorical existence from films like Inside Out 2 and the TV series Win or Lose. Now, it was more, at least from what I've heard, more of an allegorical or an insinuation that Inside Out 2 was going to have Riley be gay in that movie, but they removed those elements from it, or at least according to some Pixar insiders. In the lead up to the release of Inside Out 2, there was those insinuations within the movie, but the executives kind of got cold feet on making it so overt, so they said, like, okay, go back and edit it so it's not necessarily... It's not as prominent, or at least it's not as overt. Maybe you could still kind of glean this from it, or maybe it's kind of subtext, but it's not as in your face, or it's more basically left up to the discussion. And after the film was released, it was highly successful for the studio. It made nearly $1.7 billion globally. And this is following a string of flops for the studio that had more overt queer characters within it. Now, some people are going to take this to mean like if you remove these elements from the movie, it's going to be successful. I've never been one of those people. I even said when it came to Inside Out 2, I think the film was going to be successful regardless, and I don't think this is the reason why the movie was highly successful for them. But I can't deny that after the film was released, parents leaving the theater with their kids were saying that the film was good. The whole family can enjoy it. There was no overt political messaging in it or anything like that, which is something that people were kind of expecting from a Pixar movie. But after people were saying like there was no political messaging in it, well, then we saw the movie had a pretty strong hold at the box office. So I do think removing those elements had a play in how successful the film actually turned out to be, but I don't think it was the only reason that it was successful. But when you look at this compared to other movies like Lightyear, for instance, which should have been really highly anticipated, was kind of panned. And one of the things that people commonly brought up about Lightyear was that they had homosexual characters within that movie. And I don't think that's the only reason why that movie failed, but I do think that played a contributing part to that. So it seems as if Pixar is understanding that we do not need to cater to these type of demographics, because when we do, it ends up hurting our bottom line. So we might as well, if we're going to have it in the movie at all, make it more allegorically or have it more steeped in subtext. So it's not, it can't necessarily be pointed out as like, oh, this movie is overtly pushing homosexuality on little children. So it makes sense that the title character in Elio wants out of this oppressive environment where he's treated like a liability and yearns to be abducted by aliens. Elio, voiced by Jonas Kidbred, I think I'm pronouncing that right, probably not, successfully escapes his oppressively normal environment where only his recently deceased parents ever truly accepted him, and finds a new community amongst colorful, diverse weirdos who live amongst the stars. There he can finally drink mocktails and dress in star-spangled sequined capes all he wants. It's a fantasy we all get behind. Elio, raised by his Aunt Olga, Zoe Saldana, who works at a local Air Force base that monitors space debris. A kooky fellow employee named These Are the Jokes. El Melmek thinks he's heard a message from outer space, so while his coworkers tell him to go home and stop pretending there's wonder in the universe, Elio sneaks into the control room and asks the aliens to pick him up ASAP. He's tired of living in a world where his weirdness is a burden to his family. And that's the problem when it comes to people like the author of this article, is they think that kids feeling different or anything like that has to mean that they're either trans or they're queer or some other way like that. And that's not the case. Kids feel different all the time. That's just normal part of being kids. And when you're trying to pigeonhole it into basically saying if you feel different as a child, that means you must be queer, it's a way of indoctrinating children in a subtle manner by basically trying to make kids think that from a young age, before when they're very impressionable, that the only reason they would actually feel different is because they're actually queer or something like that, and to try to put them on that path from an early age before they actually fully develop, before their personality fully sets in, you're basically shoving them into this category. And I think that's the whole reason why a lot of activists like the author of this article are trying to do that sort of thing. And that's why people say it's indoctrination. It's best just to leave it ambiguous, I think, for something like this in a movie like this, because like I said, when you make it about queerness specifically, then it's also alienating to a large section of the audience who may not be necessarily feel like outsiders or feel different because they're queer, but because that they, for whatever other reason, why they don't feel like they fit in with regular society. And I think that's important to kind of make it seem a little bit more accepting in a manner by kind of keeping it open as to why Elio feels different than everyone else, as opposed to just saying he feels different just because he's gay. And like, I hear this a lot when it comes to other properties. X-Men is a big one that people like to bring up. They say like, oh, it's an allegory for gay people. It's like, no, it's an allegory for outsiders or people who are oppressed. And it can be whatever you want. Like nowadays people will say it's an allegory for gay people, but when it came out, it was more of an allegory for civil rights. So it had nothing to do with your sexual orientation. And that's the good thing about the X-Men, or at least the way it was originally conceived, is that no matter at what time it comes out, there's always going to be some group that they can actually relate to and identify with it. And that's what makes something timeless. When you kind of restrict it to the political talking points of the day, then it just makes the whole thing dated. Now, I'm not going to say removing these elements is going to make the movie successful. In fact, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the movie is probably going to be a huge flop for the studio. I think this basically means people are not interested in original content as much as what they're saying, because they say they want more original stuff and more new IPs, but when you actually look at what they're spending their money on at the box office, they're basically just going to watch remakes and other franchise films like this. So right now it's set to open for, or at least it's projected to open to $30 million on a $300 million budget, which would actually make this one of the lowest performing Pixar movies, if not the lowest performing Pixar movies of all time. Maybe there's going to be some people saying like, oh, you see, if you would have made this more overtly gay, that the movie was going to be successful. But I think it's pretty safe to say that that would have actually just made things worse for this movie. It's kind of sad, honestly, that they're trying their shot at an original movie. It doesn't work, but I do appreciate that they're trying to do something original. And I also appreciate that Pixar isn't necessarily trying to bow to the Rainbow Mafia or anything like that by shoving some type of messaging in a movie to indoctrinate children, and instead are just trying to make something that they think can actually appeal to a wider audience, even if it's not necessarily successful. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Agree with me, disagree with me. I'm curious what you have to say. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.